There are many great ways to use Google Forms in the classroom. You can use it as an individual teacher if you don't have Google Apps for Ed in your district. It's still a tool you can use as a teacher to collect information from your students and parents and survey people online and all kinds of great things. I'm starting off on this Jenny McGuira's page that I've shown you before. This is an older website that she created in Google Sites, probably for her class at some point. I think it says 2000. I don't know what year it is. But anyway, it's not a current class that she has. But she has some great ideas for using Google Forms. And what she's done is her students would know that they have this Google site here. And on that Google site, she has some forms that her students use probably on a daily basis. And the top one is a math exit ticket, and I'm guessing she changes this one daily, weekly, whatever the case may be. But exit tickets are a great way to use Google Forms. So if I click here, what she's done is she's linked this exit ticket, and then she's embedded the form right in her Google site, so it's easy for the kids to access. And you'll see here it's just some simple questions that she's asking of her students at the end of a lesson, just to see if they got it. Now, it doesn't show, I mean, I can't tell this from her spreadsheet, but in here, there's a couple of questions that the kids are answering. And she could use an add-on, which I'll talk about later, called Flubaroo, to actually automatically grade those for her. So when she takes a look at this information, she would see student name, grade, classroom number, and then she would see how they did on these 3 questions, and then she could, and those could already be graded for her, and then she could read their explanation. So all of this is something that she could easily do, and it's linked right off their sheets, right off their school website. So it's something that they have a routine of using. We're going to look at this mood check-in in a minute, but another one that they have here is this objective self-assessment. So basically this is what did I do, some questions about whatever they're working on. Again, it's specific to her class. I mean, it's a generic sheet, but it's specific to what they were doing that day. So it can be used over and over again and linked right here on her sheet. This one here, this app review, so her students use iPads, and so as they use the app or find a new app, there's a place for them to review it right here in her website. And then I like this one down here. I was just talking to a teacher yesterday who was frustrated by how do you have a small group of kids, and in her case they were working on Chromebooks, but iPads would be the same, while you're trying to work with a small group of kids somewhere else, and how do you keep them on task and all this kind of stuff. So one way to do that is to have some kind of accountability for what they're doing while they're working in that group, something that they have to complete, to share. So if they're not able to do that, then that shows that they were not on task and they were somewhere else off task. And so it's not specifically where they were wondering, but the fact that they had time to wonder. So this iPad reflection form that she created here, so she asked them where they were, what app they were using, and how did it help you learn today, and what was your score? How do you feel like your effort was in her class as a math class that day? And I heard Jenny say that they have to fill out this form, or maybe it says it on here. No, I guess I must have heard her say it. Oh no, here we go. It says you must fill out this form to get your iPad grade today and be allowed to use it again tomorrow. So they have some accountability here, and if they don't do this, then they don't get to use the technology the next day. And what I was telling the teacher I was working with this week was something as simple as having them take a screenshot that shows at the end of a level that they got to where they were supposed to go on a level. Or, obviously if they're creating something, you can share what what's been created, but something specific that they have to show, that if they were spending time on math games, they have to show what score they got on their math game or something like that, so that they have some kind of accountability for what they were doing on that technology, so that the teacher does have the freedom to use that as a time where the students can be self-directed and the teacher can work with a smaller group of students. So I liked all of these ideas for using a form. And we're going to take a look at this mood check-in that we talked about in class already. So in this case, as we heard from Jenny McGarrah, we know that she works in kind of a rough neighborhood. So her kids start off their day by doing this little check-in just to see how they're doing. So their name, and then some how do you feel questions, and then why do you feel this way, and then a goal for the day. So that's how they start their day. And then we are going to, I'm going to show you how to create this form, and then how she uses it with conditional formatting. So I'm going to pop over here to my Google Drive. So here we are in Google Drive. And to start a new form, I go to New. And then I have to go down here to More because you can't see it. And it says Google Forms. It's a purple one. And we have a Google Form here. Now, I'm actually started one already just to save some time. But this is how you get to it. And then, so I'm going to pop this one over here that I already started. So on this, it's a very simple thing to fill out. Here's how you add questions. So this is the title, and there's a little blank for title. And then you start adding questions. So if I click here, you'll see this is my question. I'm asking the name. And then I have options of what kind of answer I get. So in the case of a name, you would want short answer. You can also have a paragraph block. You can have multiple choice questions, checkbox, drop-down menu, linear scale, multiple choice grid, or it can be a date or time question. So all of those are types of questions that you can have. So this one's short answer. And the other thing on here is if I want the question to be required, I have to make sure that this button is required here. Sometimes, and so it won't let them submit the form until they've answered all the required questions. Sometimes you have questions that you don't need to answer. I mean, you only need to answer if you have an answer to it, and so you wouldn't need that. But for most questions, you have something where you need a required question. This drop-down menu here gives you some options of the description. So with that, what that means is if the question you ask needs some kind of a hint, like in this case of name, I could say last name, first name, or something like that. And then data validation, this is if you've got something like you want them to put their email address, or you want them to put a certain, like they have to choose between 5 numbers or something like that. And so like classrooms or something like that. And so if they put something that doesn't fit whatever your criteria is, then it'll bounce back and say, please put a valid email or that kind of thing. So that's what data validation is, if you want to work with that. And then, so here's another kind of question. This is a checkbox. And so in the case of a checkbox, and to add another question, I hit the plus right here. In the case of a checkbox, I can have as many options as I want, and they all show up on the check sheet, and I can check as many of the options as I want. So this is good if you've got, you know, a question that could have more than one answer. So there's a checkbox there. You can also, at the very bottom, there's always an add other, and then with the add other, it gives a little blank space for you to write whatever that other is. You'll notice here as well, so if you don't want your question anymore, you can delete it right here. And if you want to duplicate the question, so like if you're going to, sometimes your question has a similar, like has all the same choices for answers, but you ask a different question. Like Like, how are you feeling yesterday? How are you feeling today? How do you think you'll feel tomorrow? Those would be 3 different questions, but they could all have these same answers. I know that's a silly thing, but anyway, so what you could do in that case is you could duplicate it and then just change the pieces that you need to save time. So some other options besides adding a question, you can add titles and descriptions here with the T. You can add images. So this is great for, it could be like science, and you've got a diagram or something and you add that in there, and then you're going to ask questions about that diagram. You can also add YouTube videos, also great. We talked about the Common Core on Monday, and one thing that there's a lot of emphasis in the Common Core is being able to compare 2 different forms of media. So having, pasting some text, pasting a video in there, and then asking some questions about compare or contrast or something like that. All of that can be done in a Google form. And then this one here, if you want to have different sections, this is kind of like choose your own adventure. If you answer a question a certain way, it will take you to that. And I'm going to click on this, even though it's a little confusing because I don't need it for this particular form. But if I click add a section, then it gives me some options of what I do. So continue to the next section, or you know, if I had more than one section, I could continue to that. I could submit the form based on how the question was answered. So right now, I'm going to click here and get rid of that section because I don't need it. All right, so those are some of your options up there. And then you'll notice the next question here. This is a paragraph, so they can explain as long as they need to. And then their goal for the day is also a paragraph. And then this is a multiple choice, yes or no. Okay, so it's super simple to create a form. They can get really crazy complicated if you have, you know, if you answer one question one way, you go one direction and all that kind of good thing. But they can also be incredibly simple. So they're very useful for a lot of things. Now, so those are all. That's all there is to creating the form. But I want to show you up here on the top a few things. This is the name of the form right here. And then this little thing, this is a puzzle piece. These are add-ons. And add-ons are things that you can add on that add functionality to your form. And actually there's add-ons for Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Forms. So in Google Forms, some of the add-ons that I've already added here, there's Choice Eliminator. And I use this with our speed geeking. So I put several different examples, and when a team chose that example, the choice went away. So the next team that went couldn't choose that example. Doc Appender is one that makes kind of like a running record. So a teacher could have a form that has all of their students' names on it and certain skills or whatever that they're observing. And so the teacher pulls out a certain student, and then they look at them that one day, and with Doc Appender, it sends that information to a document, a Google document, and then the next time they do that same form, it just adds it to that same document, so you have a running record there. Form Publisher, when we look at spreadsheets, you'll see that all of this stuff goes into a spreadsheet, and sometimes that's pretty hard to read, and so with Form Publisher, it actually publishes the stuff in a readable document instead of in the spreadsheet, so you can see it that way. Form Limiter limits like the time that you could take the form, some different things like that. I'm not going to keep going in. Anyway, there's a lot of cool add-ons that you can do. And then this color palette here, you can change how your form looks. So there's all these colors, and then there's also images. So if you don't like the colors, you can get any of these images that you can add here. So I can change it to this. And if I don't like that, I can also add my own images. So I can upload my own photos. So there's lots of different ways you can work with that. I'll just leave that there for now. And then this is how you would preview to see what the form looks like for others. That's what it looks like if you're going to take the give the form to somebody else. And then the settings button. Here's some of your options. Now if you're in a Google Apps for Education account, what you're going to see as a default is it's going to say, in my case, anyone in the Mount Vernon School District can answer this question or fill out this form. I hardly ever want that to be my answer because it just, I'll tell you when I would want to use it. Or you can have anyone. So, and if you're using your own personal account, you're not going to have those options. It's just going to be anyone. And then you can also choose how many responses that they can respond, and that requires a login. So, so if you want people just to be able, like they're voting for something and they only can respond once, then you'd want to click that, and then they have to log in or put in their name, or they can't do that. And then there's a confirmation page. So once you hit submit, this is where you can put thanks for answering the questions, or anything you want there. You could say, now that you've answered the question, go read a book, or whatever the response is. Or I will be looking for your grade from your self-grading quiz in the email, or whatever it might be. The other things that you can do is you can have it so the link after you hit submit says you can submit another response, or you can edit your response, or you can see summary of responses. So this is where you could see you're providing a link that everybody can see what everybody else is answering. And then also some presentation options. So you can have a progress bar. So if you have a long survey, you might want people to be able to see they're halfway through. And you can also shuffle question order. So this is good for if you've got a quiz or something you've created on there, and you want students who are sitting next to each other not all to be taking the same, answering the same question at the same time. That's almost all there is to forms. The other thing is the way that you send your form. So right here it says send. So here I have several different options for sending my forms. Now if up here this little checkbox that says collect usernames. So if I was in a district that had Google Apps for Education and I was working with students, if I clicked that box, I wouldn't even have to ask their name on the form because or email, because that would automatically be collected if I click this box. Otherwise, if I'm working within the if I'm working with outside of the district, I would need to, if I needed to somehow respond with via email, I would need to make sure I had that question as one of my questions on my form. So that's a question, and so you can send a form by mail, or you can provide a link, or you can actually embed it like Jenny McGeer did into her Google site, or a Google blog, or a blog. It doesn't have to be a Google blog. So this is how you would just provide a link. This is how you would embed it. And this is how you would send it as an email. And if you're sending it as an email to other people with a Google Apps account, the form can actually live right in the email. If they don't have a Google account, it provides a link for them to go and answer the form. So people answering the form do not have to have a Google account in order to answer the questions. Okay, so, and then you would hit send. And when I hit send, well, here I'm going to go to the link so you can see what that looks like. So it provides a link, and if you don't like that big ugly link, you can click shorten URL and you get a shorter link that you can share. Here's what the embed code would look like, and I would copy that. And if I don't like the size, I could change the size right here before I copy this. And if I send it by email, I have to put, who it's going to, and then it would go right in there. So those are all the send. One more little thing on here is collaborators. So all the stuff I've said, this is all, you're the only one who can edit. When you send it, all they can do is answer the questions. They can't edit. But over here where it says more, one of the things I can do is add collaborators. So if I want somebody to be helping me out with this form and looking at the responses and all that kind of stuff, I can actually add people just like I can in any of the other Google tools. I can share with them. So, but if I don't want them messing with my form, I just want them to fill out the form, I would not add them as collaborators. Okay, that's about it for the form itself. You'll see up here, so these are questions and then we have responses, and that's what we're going to look at next. So you'll see here, and I just played with this once, so there's already one response, and I can see a summary of all the responses, which this will look better on a later one, or I can see individual responses, and I can also, this is a spreadsheet, so I can view the responses in a spreadsheet. And if I click here, I have some ways to download and do different things like that. So that is Google Forms in a nutshell. It's really pretty intuitive to use and can be used for lots of different things.